Now in the movies, it seems the chuck wagon cook is always being harassed for the poor cooking. But today we talk with a cowboy that's made a name for himself as one of the best camp cooks.
I think cooking in Mother Nature's kitchen and having to deal with the elements all the time, it sort of gives you an advantage really in cooking, because if you can cook in that, you can sure cook in the house.
Cowboy cook and chef Kent Rollins out of Hollis, Oklahoma is my guest today as we talk about the influence his parents had on his life.
She could take a little and make a lot out of it.
Plus his experience on television cooking shows like Chop, Food Fighters, and Throwdown with Bobby Flay.
It's going to be a great time we're going to have. I said, welcome, Bobby, to the land of hot and heavy.
With the help of his wife, Shannon, Kent's become a YouTube sensation with videos that stirs up our memories of food growing up, and he's a great spokesman for our beef industry to boot. Cowboy cook Kent Rollins on this episode of the Working Ranch Radio Show. We welcome you here again to another episode of the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm your host, Justin Mills. I got in front of me a big, tall, steaming, smooth cup of Cowboy coffee. And if you want to know why I'm saying it like that, is because our guest today is none other than the infamous Kent Rollins out of Hollis, Oklahoma, as he is joining us on our program today. Now, for those of you that watch national cooking shows, you probably saw him several years on some of those shows, but here more recently, he and his wife Shannon have really taken advantage of and used the YouTube medium out there to put videos out, and of course those can be shared on social media or on YouTube as well. And that is in fact where I saw Kent for the first time with some of those, and one of those videos I was watching was how to make Cowboy coffee. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that today with him in amongst of many other things that we're going to talk with Kent about, and I appreciate him joining us on our program here today. So be sure to join us for Cowboy cook and chef Kent Rollins, our guest on the Working Ranch Radio Show. Also, as we always do in each and every show, meteorologist Don Day will be joining us with a look at our long-term weather. Now, last week he joined us for the entire show as we got a full, really long-term weather outlook. I encourage you to go back and listen to that show if you missed it on our podcast site. Now, something else I wanted to mention as we head into this season of Thanksgiving and Christmas, here's something I'm going to ask you. How many of you use a bale bed to feed cattle with? Well, I do. We do. In fact, we have a couple pickups with bale beds, and our main feed pickup that we use has a hydro bed on it. Yeah, the original bale bed out there. And I know when we talk about bale beds, that's probably what a lot of folks think of. Well, did you know that they have recently produced their 20th thousand? Yeah, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but yeah, 20,000 hydro beds. And they're going to take that 20,000 one commemorative hydro bed, and they're going to be selling it on Big Iron. But get this, all of the proceeds are going to be raising money for awareness for kids with type 1 diabetes. They're working with Team Schnack, and Team Schnack has been doing that. The money going to them and their type 1 diabetes efforts there. So if you would like to be a part of hydrobed history, go to Big Iron. They're going to put that hydrobed out there on the week of Thanksgiving, and then that sale will finish on December 21st. So take a look at it. If you want more information on it, don't be afraid to go to Hydrobed's website as well. Well, real quick, I would like to thank the sponsors of the Working Ranch Radio Show, Zenpro Perfusion Drench. Optimize performance from the start with Zenpro Perfusion Drench. And the American Simmental Association, and they have made some fundamental changes to the organization and brought to the table many things that help ranchers move their operations forward. Pedigree knowledge with actual performance records and now some very advanced genomics, providing more predictability to you, the producer, so that you can make management decisions that put money right back into your pocket. SimGenetics, profit through science. Find out more at simmental.org. And Zoetis, it's the little things that could derail progress, but your herd can be covered. Visit getlessparasites.com for solutions from Zoetis. And Biozyme, it is weaning time, so for protection and recovery, think VitaCharge by Biozyme. For more information, visit vitafirm.com/Vita-Charge. Well, right now, let's check in with the captain, Tim O'Byrne, publisher and editor of Working Ranch Magazine, for this week's edition of Tim's 2 Cents.
Hey, Justin. Hey, everybody out there in Working Ranch Radio Land. Now, this presser comes from the U.S. Cattlemen's Association. They're such good folks over there, aren't they, Justin? All right, so Secretary of Ag Tom Vilsack announced today the first round recipients of the Meat and Poultry Processing Expansion Program. And the acronym for that is MPPEP, if you're into acronyms, of the grants and loans. Phase 1 of MPPEP consists of $73 million in 21 grant projects intended to increase competition across the cattle marketplace and support increased producer opportunities. Additionally, these grants will work towards strengthening the food chain supply, creating jobs in largely rural areas, that's us, and lowering costs for consumers. U.S. Cattlemen's Association President Brooke Miller issued the following statement, and I quote, USCA is pleased to see the breadth and scope of projects supported through MPPEP funding. The importance of this federal investment in our nation's independent meat processors is evident when looking at the individual projects. For example, and this is still his quote, Upper Iowa Beef received a grant that will expand their processing capacity by over 50% while creating new jobs for the community and premium revenue opportunities for independent producers. In North Dakota, South 40 Beef will receive just under $500,000 to increase cooler and fab space, which will help them double their processing capacity and workforce. And Lot 279 in Nebraska will use this grant to transition its current operation into a further processing facility to help local producers add value to their beef products. And to finish off, Mr. Miller's quote, these federal dollars were awarded to individuals and independent processors that can help usher in a new era of U.S. food production. U.S. Cattlemen's Association is encouraged by the announcement made today and looks forward to working with Secretary Vilsack and his staff as they prepare for subsequent rounds of funding. Justin, that's kind of the way I was hoping this was all going to go. But we ain't done yet. So we'll see how this all works itself out. Back to you. I know you got a great show.
All right, thanks, Captain. And yeah, I think we have a great show on tap here for today. Now, as we head into the break, I want you to be thinking about this. How many of you have cattle out there on feed? Maybe it's some poor hay if you're in a drought area and you had to buy some poor quality hay, or maybe you're on corn stalks or range or pasture out there, but you know that forage isn't going to fit all the nutritional requirements that those cattle need. And so you're going to need some sort of a supplement. Well, let me get you thinking about this. New generation supplements. Yeah, they've been in the business for over 25 years now with 2,000 dealerships across U.S. and Canada. Now, don't say that number so that you think they're such a big outfit that they have just only a one-size-fits-all product for you. That's not the case. In fact, they know that raising cattle in West Texas, it just is not the same as raising cattle in South Dakota or over in Missouri, which is why they have over 70 unique formulas between their 3 livestock brands. Have you heard of Smart Lick? How about Feed in a Drum or Megalick? Yeah, those are new generation supplement products that are out there. And like I said, they have over 70 unique formulas between those 3 brands out there. They're not a fad-based company. They sell what's proven to improve cattle performance and help animals reach their genetic potential. And like they say, nutritionally happy cows starts with nutritionally happy rumen microbes. Check it out. New generation supplements, research-driven, field-proven supplement solution. Check them out online at newgensupplements.com. Well, stay with us. Coming up next, Kent Rollins, the Cowboy Cookin chef, joins us when we return on the Working Ranch Radio Show. Starting off in the right direction is essential to gaining an advantage later when you go to market your calves. And I have proof that the right direction is with Sim Angus sired calves. A 2020 study by K-State showed that Sim Angus sired steer calves earn more at sale time than all other breed identified sire groups with at least 50 lots represented on Superior Livestock's 2020 summer sales. The proof's right there. For low-risk, high-potential calves with earning potential, be confident that Sim Genetics will give you more per head, period. Stand strong, Simmental. And we welcome you back here to the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. We thank you for joining us here on our program as we head now into our featured interview. And I'm pleased to have with me a guest that I know if you're in the ranching industry and you kind of attentive to your phone or YouTube, you probably caught this gentleman on a YouTube channel. Kent Rollins out of Hollis, Oklahoma is joining us here today. And Kent, I sure appreciate you taking the time to join us here today on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Oh, Justin, it is my pleasure, my friend. It's keeping me from washing dishes or building a fire, one of the two. So it is good to have a break.
You bet. You bet. Well, Kent, you've been around for a while, so it's not like you're just new to the world, but with our technology today of having our phones and or tablets or computer in the YouTube channel, you've really taken a lot of advantage of that in a very positive way. So I guess the first thing as we kind of learn more about you, let's go back in your history and your background and just kind of how you got started to where you're ended up here today.
Well, I was very fortunate to be raised by two individuals, my mom and dad, that insisted that you work hard every day, but also you took pride in what you did. My dad told me a long, long time ago, he said, get a job, find something you like. He said, do it better than everybody else. You'll never have a job. And I've been on vacation for 35 years now, is what it seems like. But my mother really is the one that she taught me how to cook in a way that, all the ranchers and farmers did back then was put food on the table and feed their family with a little bit of nothing at times. But she could take a little and make a lot out of it, and taught me how to mix ingredients that you might not think would fit, that'd go. And if people have watched our YouTube, they know that when I measure stuff, I say it's about that amount or it's about this much. And I would get in the kitchen with a bunch of old women after church on Sunday, and I never seen them use a recipe. They just put a little bit of this in there and a little bit of that, and it was always the best thing you ever eat. And I was fortunate enough to get to work with my dad and some really good cowboys in our country, and those old fellers become heroes. They stood like tall oak trees to me, and they could rope anything that had horns, hoof, or ears. And they'd teach you it was a whole lot more than just knowing something about a cow and a horse. It was about a way of life and how you valued that life, and you was a steward of the land, and you took care of it. And it really resonated over the years is you put into life what you want to get out of it. And if you put your heart into it, you'll be all right.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting when you were talking about your mom having a big influence on you in that element. Your dad had a big influence on you in another side of your life as well. But as I watched you have watched your YouTube channel and your videos that you put out there, I find that I feel what the appeal is in some ways for some of us is there are a lot of great memories that a lot of us have, especially for those of us that grew up on ranches and being around that really did revolve around the food and the dinner table. And I think some of the things that you do there, as you said, a dash of this and a pinch of that or something like that, I laughed a little bit because my mom was a great cook. There was 8 kids in my family. And so before she passed away, we got her to make a cookbook, and her title of it was Make It to Taste. And I find, your way of doing things is a lot like that. I mean, it's just like, it's just, you have that ability to do that and brings back so many memories for a lot of us.
Well, and a lot of that goes back to cooking on ranches too. When you're 70 miles from the nearest grocery store and you're going to put in 6 weeks, on 280,000 acres or something like that, you learn to improvise. If you ain't got something, you know what else takes its place, or you know what fits, because it ain't like you're going to go to the grocery store and pick it up right quick. And you learn what works. And Cowboy is some of the greatest experiments I ever had in my life. You could always tell if something was good. They'd clean the plate and want some more. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of a gauge for me. A lot of brand new recipes come out on ranches that I'd never tried on anybody else. And I'd think, where are they going to go? We're 70 miles from town. They're either going to eat it or they ain't, So, and I was always very fortunate to cook for crews that were really some of the best people in the world and very polite. And but I don't ever remember any of them ever telling me in the 30-something years that I've cooked on ranches that I didn't want no more of that. I wouldn't need that again, so that was always a plus. But I think cooking in Mother Nature's kitchen and having to deal with the elements all the time, it sort of gives you an advantage really in cooking, because if you can cook in that, you can sure cook in the house. And I think about my mother so many days when I was cooking like that, to think that they could take something and make it into something that would feed 12 or 15 people pretty easy. So there was a lot of influence on ranches that come from my childhood and watching my mother and a bunch of old women cook.
Mm-hmm. So as you evolved in your different life experiences to where you're at today, when you first started in doing and putting a YouTube channel out there, or I guess what kind of propelled that? I mean, what got you into that element of it, other than that's a great medium for in our society today?
Well, about 10 years ago, me and Shannon, she told me, Shannon brought me to the modern age. I can remember asking her, she said, do you have an email address? I said, yep, Route 1, Box 318. She said, no, that's not hardly it. But she taught me that if we could do a YouTube video, we could reach people anywhere. It ain't like it's just limited to, you got 5 channels if you move the antenna on the TV.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to reach people overseas, anywhere in the world. And we thought it's a pretty good outlet. We'll see what happens. And we probably made maybe 4 videos the first year just to see what was happening. And it wasn't until really about 4 years after that we realized, we'd been on the road so much and done so many festivals and stuff that we always knew people liked what we did. Let's just make it sort of like ranch cooking more and just get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't know. She never was an editor until she started. She's a great editor. She's a great photographer. And she just learned it by, I'm going to sit down and do this. Now, we try to film 3 to 4 videos a week. I work on a recipe 5-6 days a week. She'll sit at the computer 9 hours sometimes to edit, and I'll come in, Justin, and I'll hear her say, I'm really tired of looking at you. And I didn't want to take that at first, but we have the greatest fans in the world. They love God, they love country, they love food. And our channel's more than just food.
Mm-hmm.
We want to teach people about some life. We want to make people laugh. We might make them cry a time or two. We want people to know that they're important, mm-hmm. and that this is not rocket science cooking. Anybody can do it. And what better place to do it than in the backyard or out there in the middle of nowhere and bring family and friends together.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too that as you were talking about there, one of your roles, and maybe it wasn't what you thought it was going to be exactly when you first started. Maybe it was a bit, but you're really a bridge, I feel, between where we're at today and some of our ranching heritage that revolved around the old chuck wagons, and that is something that you. And I know you're a storyteller beyond that, and you have a way of communicating that, and that's a big role that you're really doing on behalf of our ranching industry.
Well, it's I had a lady tell me one time in an interview. She said, I guess y'all raise beef. And I said, yes, ma'am. I said, we have put a lot of beef in the market and a little bit of beef on the table. She said, oh, you don't eat beef? And I said, oh, yes, ma'am, we eat beef. My dad always told me it would be rare. Not the way it was cooked, just the occasion in which you would have it. I said, because a lot of that stuff was having to go to sale to pay for something else. But I said, you always raised your own beef
mm-hmm.
Back then. And it was, a lot different than beef you really see today at times. But there's so many ranching and farming communities out there that still do. They keep that 1 or 2 head back, all the time. We're going to put this in the freezer. And them little mom and pop operations like that are really the ones that I admire so much, because they put their heart and soul into it. And it's all about taking care of the land, putting the best cattle you can out there on it, and then enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
I never was afraid of beef on a plate. Sometimes I was afraid of it on the hoof.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in your description of how you were raised and the fact that your dad said, well, we'd have beef, but it'd be rare because of the occasion, or, it wouldn't happen every day necessarily. I think if you were to go back, say 50, maybe less than that, 30, 40, 50 years back, you really did see a lot of the family farms that, we raised beef. I was much the same way, but we raised a lot of other things, and so I find in your YouTube channel, you promote beef a lot, but you cook with other meats as well because that was how it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember my dad told me one time, I remember getting a Red Ryder beating gun when I was about 9 years old. And he told me, he said, "You going hunting?" I said, "Yep, I'm finna go hunting." He said, "Whatever you kill, you eat." And I said, "What?" He said, "Remember, what you kill is what you eat." Well, I got really lucky that day and shot a crow. Now, I really didn't think I was going to have to eat that crow, but when I got to the house, he told me, he said, "Well, I want to see you clean this, and I'd like to watch you cook it." So I went out there and got my usual grill set up, which was 2 Jip rocks and a refrigerator rack, laid it across there. I plucked that crow just like you would an old fat hen on Sunday, laid it out there on that grill and cooked it. And you've always heard the term in life, you had to eat crow.
Yeah.
Well, really, eating crow is not good, I promise. That was some of the driest, toughest meat I'd ever seen in my life. And it's the only crow I ever shot in my life.
Oh, good story there. Kent Rollins out of Hollis, Oklahoma is joining us here on the Working Ranch Radio Show today. If you're active on social media or YouTube, you probably and more than likely have come across him on those sites. But if not, you might have seen him on some national TV cooking shows. Well, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about that when we return on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Set up the next generation for a productive lifetime with Zinpro Avela 4. Achieve productive success in your cows with 20% increased conception rate and a 16-day tighter calving interval. Calves from cows supplemented with Zinpro hit the ground running with improved immunity and 28 more pounds at weaning. Allow your cows and calves to perform to their full potential with Zinpro Avela 4.
And we welcome you back here to the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. My guest today is cowboy chef and cook by the name of Kent Rollins. And I know for a lot of folks on social media, if you're just flipping through your Facebook or Instagram videos and or you're out on YouTube, you probably come across Kent's channel. And I encourage you to go out there and take a look at that. Very, very entertaining and very educational to boot. But Kent, I want to get into now a little bit about you got some national exposure when you were on some of the national cooking shows. And I don't know which ones they were. I know I'd seen a couple videos or so, but I guess two parts of that. Number one is it was fun to see somebody that represented our lifestyle on those shows instead of just kind of some stuffy chef on there. So I appreciated that a part of it. But tell us about kind of how that went and how you were perceived by that deal.
Well, the first one we ever did, I guess, as a competition was they had a show called Throwdown with Bobby Flay. And you sure don't know what's happening. They research a meal that they think that you cook pretty good, and they're going to try to cook it better. And they come from New York City. Me and Shannon was on a ranch north of Wichita Falls, Texas at the time. It was in late August, first part of September. It's probably 103 degrees, humidity about 65% down there. And when he showed up and he told me, he said, "I hear you cook the best chicken fried steak in the world." And I said, "I don't know about that, but I've had a lot of practice." And he said, "I'd like to challenge you to a cook-off today to see who cooks the best." And I just looked at him and I said, "In my kitchen today?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Thank you, Lord, so much." I said, "It's going to be a great time we're going to have." I said, "Welcome, Bobby, to the land of hot and heavy." He dug out some cast iron there that said made in Taiwan. And I told him, I said, "You better not throw that on that old wood stove of mine." I said, "She'll melt it." I said, "That stuff won't never hold up." So I give him one of them old 20-inch skillets I got. And I told Shan, I said, "We're going to put as much wood in that stove as it's going to hold, and we're going to find out how tough he is." Well, when them flames got to licking him under the chin, Bobby allowed that a man be a fool to have a job like I did. And I told him, it's job security. Nobody going to take it from me. And we ended up beating him. That sort of opened the door for a few more things for the Food Network. Mm-hmm. Probably the one that was the most did the most for us probably was a show called Chop Grill Masters.
Yeah.
It was filmed in Tucson. They took 15 chefs across the United States and one cowboy cook. They really just wanted a cowboy because they were filming. Really, the set was where this old Western show, High Chaparral, used to be filmed.
Yep.
So they thought, if we could talk about the Old West and have a cowboy out here, it'd sort of make this look a little better. And I'd never seen the show. Shannon pulled an episode up for me on the computer, and you don't know what's in the basket of food that they have, and most of it's stuff that I'd never seen. And it was a very interesting 3 or 4 days. I finally realized that it's just cooking with fire and just cook the same way you always cook, even if you don't know what it is. We win the first round, made it to the finals. I can remember the morning that we got on the bus to do the finals. There was 3 other chefs, and one was sitting back there in the back when I got on that morning, Justin, and he said, "You the cowboy guy that we got on here?" And I said, "I reckon, unless you got more than one." And he said, "Nope." He said, "I figure you're it." He said, "I just want to tell you, competition is real today. Don't be surprised when you're the first one to go home." My dad had always told me, you never brag about what you can do, especially horseback. You just show it.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at him and I said, "Sir, I don't know you, but I said, it's pretty evident to me that you're a legend in your own mind." And he didn't think it was funny, but he was the first one chopped and went home that day. Ended up winning second. We ended up, probably because of that show, getting our first deal with a publishing agent, and our first cookbook, A Taste of Cowboy, that come out in 2015, become a bestseller. And the people that I met there, the crew, the people that hosted the show, we're still friends today. And that means a lot to me because those people did a great job. It was their largest outdoor production at the time that they'd ever did. And it was made me really nervous. I mean, I rode bulls for a living for a long time, and they didn't bother me near like trying to cook them groceries they throw at me. But it did a lot for us. I can remember a cameraman telling me one time, he said, "You're one of the few people I know that doesn't change when we put a camera on your face." And I said, "Sir, I ain't changed socks in a week." I said, "I probably ain't going to change none on camera neither." And I said, "You just be who you are every day. Don't be something you're not." And I said, "You'll go a lot further in life."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, you going on those shows, as I said before, it was a way to be an educational component and that spokesperson for our ranching heritage. And you kind of answered my question already, telling the story about the guy on the bus, kind of just assuming that you were going to be the first one chopped in that. And I'm guessing that really when they invited you on that was kind of to appease, and you really surprised a lot of folks.
Yeah, I remember you have to do a segment there at the first where you cook up one of your favorite dishes. And the lady that filmed it, we're still great friends today. And she told me, she said, "Kent, I'm counting on you to win this." And I said, "Well, thank you, ma'am." I said, "I'm just going to do what Shannon told me and try to get through the first round and not embarrass the family name." And so it was really good. And really after the first round, because you shoot a segment and then it's bunch of interviews, then you go back and you do another one. And but I can remember coming off that first time after that first appetizer round, and a lot of that crew was saying, "Our money's on you, cowboy." And but I become dear friends with so many of them. By the end of that first day, they knew that I'd give it my all, and it wasn't just somebody that was portraying cowboy and a cook. It was somebody that had lived both sides of it. It meant a lot to represent the heritage that we have. I can remember they asked me a question the day of the finals. They said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, it's a long way from here to the Paladera Canyon in the middle of December, sleeping in a teepee when it's -3, to cooking here." But I said, it was those days that made me what I am now. And I said, so I figure if I can cook in that weather, I can come out here and cook with y'all any day of the week.
Mm-hmm. As you were talking about your experience on some of these cooking shows, as you went through and some different doors have opened up for you, what's the probably the greatest opportunity that you feel you've had throughout all of this?
Ooh, I can remember doing a show for NBC. It was called Food Fighters. And most of the time, if Shannon, and she went with me to all of them, I guess, but they wouldn't let her on the set for so many of them. But Food Fighters was different. She was there. And there's a home chef that has 5 recipes. And she can choose any of them 5 to challenge you to cook. Well, I was the second contestant the first day. That was supposed to be what they call the professional chef. And I kept telling them, I said, please don't use that word on me. I'm just a cook. And so they sent me out there, and this little old gal was so sweet. They get to practice 3 days ahead of time out there in that kitchen on the set. And she said, well, I know he beat Bobby Flay with a chicken fried steak. I know he's got a YouTube channel, and he does a lot of cooking, and he cooks a lot of comfort food. So I really don't think I'm going to do chicken and dumplings. I don't think I'm going to do a casserole. I think I'm going to do a chocolate raspberry souffle. Well, Shan said she was watching in the monitor, and she said, I seen all the color sort of leave your face. And she said, the producer looked at me and said, Shan, does he know what a souffle is? And she said, he can't spell it. He ain't never cooked it. And there was a speaker under that counter there in that part of that kitchen that I was in. Jake come on the phone, that producer, and he said, Kent, the definition that Google has of a souffle is an eggy-like cake. And I didn't say nothing, and you have 1 minute. And he said, did that help you any? And I said, no, sir, not much. So I commenced thinking that I'm going to make it sort of like bread pudding, but I'm going to use probably twice the eggs that it would have. Then I'm going to separate the eggs, and I'm going to fluff them whites up really light so that souffle can be light. And I baked it with some really good French bread. And then I made a chocolate raspberry whiskey sauce. Now, if this lady won that round, she was going to win $25,000 and get a chance to compete against 3 other chefs, win or lose. So there's a blind judging. And I can remember standing up there, and I could see Shan's face back there behind, and she was just smiling, looking at me. And I knew no matter what, any competition that I was ever in my life, knew that I had the support of her, win, lose, or draw. Well, when they come back and they was telling about the judges, and they was showing the 2 plates of food, and hers was really pretty. It was. And the host looked, and he said, and the winner is the Cowboy Chef. Everybody in the crowd booed me, because this lady was also trying to raise enough money to get some medical equipment for her daughter. And I remember her looking at me, and she said, I don't know how you beat me with that recipe. I said, I don't either, ma'am. I said, I just feel like maybe I done a better job. Maybe I was lucky. I don't know. But when I come off there, Shannon just sort of jumped up there and gave me a big old hug and a kiss. And she said, I never doubted you a minute, because she said, it's always like cooking on them ranches. No matter what you have to work with, no matter if it's snowing, it's raining, the wind blowing 100 miles an hour, you always get it on the table. And she said, I know you didn't know what it was, but she said, I knew you could do it. And I've never made a chocolate raspberry souffle ever again. Justin probably won't.
Yeah.
But, it's one of them deals. I tell people all the time, I'm very fortunate to get to work with my best friend, and that is Shannon, the love of my life. We're together 365 days a year, and she's my greatest inspiration. She keeps me going. And we get tired of trying to come up with something new to film every week. Mm-hmm. But then we get a letter or something from some serviceman or woman that's still active duty that may be somewhere overseas that say, thank you for these videos and make us feel like we're home. So we're not going to quit cooking. Lady asked me just this week, she said, how long do you think you're going to keep this up? I said, 30 minutes till the funeral, ma'am. I'll be through. And I said, "Not that long?" I said, "I'll cater my own funeral and we'll call it a done deal."
Yeah. All right. Kent Rollins is my guest today, Cowboy Chef, as he said there. And we've got one more segment with Kent when we come back. Stay with us. We're listening to the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Every little thing is important to cattle producers, from daily chores to parasite control, just like protection is important to us. Based on approved labels, Valbicin suspension covers 25% more parasites and life stages than Safeguard. Visit getlessparasites.com for more solutions from Zoetis. Consult your veterinarian for assistance in the diagnosis, treatment, and control of parasitism.
And we welcome you back here to the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. My guest today is Cowboy Chef Kent Rollins out of Hollis, Oklahoma, as we have been talking about how he got started and some of the experiences that he has had up and along the way. And Kent, again, I thank you for joining us here today on our program. I know as we were talking in the previous segment, when you're doing recipes and cooking out there, I mean, you use a lot of different types of proteins that are out there. And of course, as the Working Ranch Radio Show, a lot of us are raisers of beef. And so that's kind of what we like to see promoted. And I know that is an element that's that you do as well, is you do have some spokesmanship type work that you do with the beef industry.
Yeah, we started probably about 7-8 years ago, Justin. I guess we did a world chef tour. They wanted me to come cater for certified Angus beef. And it was on a ranch in Kansas. And we went up there and fed 100 chefs from across the United States, and some from South America, Mexico, and some from over in England. And I always sort of get a kick out of them deals, but in a way, it's a little bit intimidating. The first one was that I was cooking for people that were culinarily trained, and when you're cooking a 28-ounce bone-in ribeye, it's a pretty big piece of steak. And we fixed hominy and green chili and casserole, baked beans, sourdough biscuits, and then bread pudding with a whiskey cream sauce. And I can remember one of them chefs come out there with a translator, and he wanted to know how long I cooked them steaks. And I said, until they're done. And he said, no, how long do you cook them on each side? And I said, it's just by touch, is the way I look at a steak, how it feels. Mm-hmm. And he pulled a temperature probe out of his pocket, and he was wanting to probe that steak. And I looked at him and I said, you tell him now, if he does that, I'm going to hit him with this spatula. I said, it's like poking a hole in a tire. I said, you're going to let something out that ain't ready to get there. And I just laughing at him. Well, he took it serious and walked off. And I didn't want to offend the guy by any way, and I remember telling one of the guys that sort of hired me, and I said, I didn't mean that bad. He said, oh, don't worry about it. Well, that guy come back, he owned 5 restaurants in South America. And he come back up there to me, and with his translator, he told me, he said, that was the best steak I ever eaten in my life. And I said, there's a lot of good beef in the United States. There is. And I said, I've cooked some of every kind in the world. And I said, from buffalo to longhorn, and I said, from elk to prime. And I said, I've thrown all of it on the fire at least once. And I said, the reason I really stuck with certified Angus beef was because of their guidelines that they had to where everything had to meet certain specs. And those folks have done a great job of advertising and promoting beef. And I love to cook beef. They always used to have that commercial, beef, it's what's for dinner. Mm-hmm. Beef is for breakfast, dinner, appetizer, snacks, ice cream, anything you can put with it. Mm-hmm. That is when you have beef.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think about several years ago, I was up in Montana on a cattle tour up there, and of course, when you're on a breed tour, then everything is beef that you're going to eat. And I remember for breakfast that one morning that they had what they called beef bacon, and I'm assuming I've always wondered, was that brisket, you think, or what did they do? What if you're going to serve beef besides a steak and eggs in the morning? What would that breakfast beef plate be?
We've made some beef bacon out of brisket, but I've also made it out of tri-tip.
Okay.
I've sliced it off the end cap, off the top cap of the sirloin, You want it to have some fat content. Really, to me, brisket is some of the best, but I really like it, a tri-tip too, because you can slice it good and thin against the grain before it turns the corner. And it's got a great taste to it. We used to cure a bunch of it, just sort of make it like a corned beef, and then you'd slice it thin, fry it back. It's like bacon, and it's pretty good eating.
Mm-hmm. I noticed here lately in some of the videos that you've put out that you've stopped by a local or a close by fast food restaurant, and you've gotten whether it's Arby's or McDonald's or various things, and gotten their signature sandwich, and you take it back and you prep something, or you make something that's similar to that. That's been something that's pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, we people kept after us for a long time on YouTube, and right now we have like 2.25 million subscribers. But a lot of the videos that really went viral, some of them were of the remakes, and probably one was, the Big Mac. And you make something the way you want it to be there. And I'm not in any way criticizing any of the fast food places,
Mm-hmm.
because they serve food to so many people and they keep people fed, and that's what it's about. But the patties there are what they call 1/8, which is 1/8 of a pound.
Mm-hmm.
So we were using half a pound of beef for each patty, which makes it a full pound. Time you get it all put together, it's big enough you really need a step ladder to eat it. But I think it's got over 5 million views now. I hadn't looked in the last 3 or 4 weeks, but it's something that people do make. It'll feed a family of 4. You can slice it and make it that way. But I do love a remake. We did Taco Bell,
Mm-hmm.
we did Wendy's, we just got through doing Arby's.
Yep.
But it just, I always tell them, I'm not criticizing their food. I'm just fixing the cowboy up and see if I can make it better.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you made a point of, maybe it was even in the Arby's one, of pointing out that, folks, we're not criticizing Arby's because they feed a lot of beef to a lot of people. And so I think that was a point you put out in that. You were talking about some of these videos being very viral or having a lot of views on it. What's the most popular video you've done?
Oh, it would probably, because the Big Mac and Cowboy Coffee and cast iron, they all do well, but I figure the Cowboy Coffee has probably got the most, and I haven't looked in quite some time, but it's probably maybe 6-7 million. It's something that's so simple, mm-hmm. that people, that have never tasted it or made it, don't really have an ideal. They just get this automatic assumption that it's bitter, it's strong, and it's not good.
Yeah.
And when you make Cowboy Coffee the right way, and you warm the water in and put in the grounds, let it come to a good rolling boil, which is 5 or 6 minutes. You're reaching a temperature that's above boiling, that none of the coffee houses or anything does anymore because of the lawsuit years ago.
Yeah.
And when you get water that hot and boil it that long, you break down the tannin in the bean, which releases the acid. And now the coffee's going to be smooth. So mm-hmm. We've converted a lot of people over to Cowboy Coffee because you don't have acid reflux anymore from it. You don't have heartburn. We serve a lot of it. We have our own blend of coffee now, which we come up with a couple of years ago, that really matches the way that Cowboy Coffee's made.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not only was that video something I watched particularly closely, but also the simple as cooking an egg in the morning. Your deal on that was good too.
Yeah, and sometimes Shannon tells me, she said, sometimes we just need to go back to what you think is the simplest thing in life. There's people out there that haven't cooked it, and it's I don't take it for granted. I just get to thinking, that, hey, people might need to see this.
Yeah. Well, Kent, just one more thing. What, when we look at what all you're into, we've talked a lot about your YouTube and some of the things you've been on. What else you got going on?
Well, we're very proud, Justin. We have another cookbook coming out, a new one on March 28th of next year. It's called Comfort Food the Cowboy Way. It's really got a lot of the old classics that you'd find in some of them old diners and truck stops so many years ago. but has a very strong traditional Mexican food section in it that cooks with a lot of dried chilies and stuff like that. Just a lot of good comfort food in there. Shan's pictures are in there because she does all the photography, whether it be food or the stories too that I write. But it's we look forward to it coming out. People can keep an eye on our website. We're going to have a big book tour that will probably start the first week of April, and we're going to cover a lot of ground, East Coast, West Coast, and in the middle too. And coming out with new products. We launched some new ones this last early summer, which was a taco seasoning, chili seasoning, and a salsa and a barbecue sauce. And they've sold and done well. So we just appreciate each and every one of you that watch our channel. We hope that you're subscribed. There's a new video comes out every Wednesday at 2:30 Central.
All right. Well, Kent, I do want to thank you for joining us here on the show. By the way, folks, his website, KentRollins.com. That is the website, and you can find out more information there, as well as probably a link into the YouTube site as well. Kent, on behalf of all of us here at Working Ranch Radio Show, thank you. And also a thank you to your wife, because you've mentioned her many, many times here today, and I know she's an important part of what you're doing. So thank you to you and Shannon both.
Thank you, Justin, and I thank all of y'all that are taking time to listen. We appreciate you letting us be on the show. If we can help you out again, just holler, my friend.
All right. Kent Rollins has been our guest here today on the Working Ranch Radio Show. Here is his website again. It is KentRollins.com. Now, Rollins is spelled Rollins. On his website, you can find information on his cookbooks as well as a link into his YouTube channel. I encourage you, go check it out for yourself. I think you'll find it not only entertaining, as I said before, but also extremely educational. And I appreciate what he's doing on behalf of our beef industry and also spokesperson for our ranching heritage, and appreciate his wife Shannon helping to set up our conversation and our interview here today. Well, stay with us. Coming up next, meteorologist Don Day joins us as we take a look at that long-term weather forecast. We'll be back after this. It's weaning time, one of the biggest days of the year for you and the most stressful for your calves. Ensure a smooth transition with the VitaCharge Weaning Program. This two-step program with the AmaFirm Advantage gives calves the nutritional boost they need to get through the first weeks of weaning, accelerate appetite, increase weight gain, and improve health. It's weaning time. Get them ready with VitaCharge. For more information, visit vitafirm.com/Vita-Charge. And welcome back to the Working Ranch Radio Show. Justin Mills with you as we're joined again by meteorologist Don Day with a look at our long-term weather. And before we get into that, Don, just a quick thank you again for joining us last week for the entire show. Very, very informative. I thought it was very interesting. We talked weather, but there was also some things that we talked about regarding climate change and some various things that I thought were real interesting. And I know folks did out there as well, because our downloads were sure pretty high on it.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I know we threw a lot at people.
Yeah, you bet. Let's talk about what we have coming up for the next. We're now in the month of November, and you'd always talked about our weather just in general, whether it's 30, 40-year cycles, 10-year cycles, or even more near-term, kind of a wave pattern. And we are definitely seeing that with kind of cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot.
Yeah, as we're making the transition out of that later fall season, and we're staring down winter, and we haven't had a lot of winter so far this season, this fall. It's been pretty remarkably nice, really, across most of the lower 48 states. But now we're starting to see winter wanting to rear its ugly head a little bit more, and certainly folks have already experienced that in the Pacific Northwest, parts of the Great Basin, parts of California. Seen some real significant snows in the mountains, and some of the first lower elevation snows as well in those areas I just mentioned. But in the eastern and central parts of the United States, they continue to have that really nice fall weather. But over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to see Mother Nature even things out like she always does. And that means some changing weather.
You know, one of the things is we look at the drought situation that we have seen across the country, down on the south central plains this last year, up in the northern plains and out into the northwest, the years ahead of that. One of the things that's going to help to change some of that is to see some pretty significant snowpack in the western half of the United States. And this last weekend, or the weekend that we're in now, and looking forward, it looks like we're going to start to build some snowpack up.
Yeah, and this is one thing that we did not have last fall. Last fall, the snowpack got off to a really late start in Washington and Oregon and central and northern California and the northern Rockies. And that really hurt. Now, a lot of times you can catch up on snowpack later in the season, but it's always good to get that snowpack, that first layer down, and make it robust. And that's certainly what we're seeing right now, as the pattern is going to be really favorable for the Pacific Northwest and the central and northern Rockies, and even part of the Colorado River Basin. So that is good to see. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be like that all winter, but it's off to a good start.
Mm-hmm. Now, something that I also noticed, and when we talk about snowpack and how it affects, the spring runoff and into the summer and kind of building up some of those reserves and the reservoirs and various things, would be we're seeing Canada really getting a lot of snowfall. Now, I know some of that heads east, but yet some of that also heads south out of Canada. That's going to be pretty significant when we look into next spring as well.
It really can. Not only does when you take a look at things like the Red River Valley in the upper Midwest, mm-hmm. some of those bigger river systems where the headwaters are coming out of south central Canada there, a deeper snowpack does make a big difference. Also, a deeper, more widespread snow covering across Saskatchewan and Alberta and into Manitoba. When Arctic air masses begin to make their move south from those higher latitudes, if they uncover large-scale snowfields, well, it makes those Arctic air masses move a little easier, and it makes them more potent as they get into the lower 48 states. So what we're seeing right now, and what we'll see here over the following week, is some pretty significant snows in those prairie provinces. That is one way you set the stage for bigger Arctic outbreaks later in the winter further south. So that's something we'll be monitoring as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, real quick here, I know it's been pretty good weather for the corn harvest in the corn states, so they have a little bit of nice weather here before things get too abrupt for them.
Yeah, in fact, the harvest weather's been fabulous, and they've got a little bit more as the real cold, stormy weather is going to be bottled up in those far western areas of the state for probably, let's say another 5 to 7 days or so. Now, we do expect some of this cold weather that's in the west to start to make a move east, especially during the second half of November. So once we get into the second and third and fourth weeks beyond that time frame, the middle part of the country, the Corn Belt, the Great Lakes, and some parts of the east will start to feel some of this cold move into those areas.
All right. Well, Don, thanks for joining us here. A good idea of what we got coming down the pike here for weather.
Thanks for having me.
And again, that was meteorologist Don Day with a look at our long-term weather. His website is dayweather.com, and from there you can also find a link into his YouTube channel. Well, stay with us. We'll put a wrap on this week's show when we come back on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Do you have a young child, grandchild, niece, or nephew that loves the weather and wants to learn more? Day Weather has produced a children's weather journal full of weather facts, fun weather experiments, coloring pages, and pages to record weather observations for every season of the year. The weather journal is for ages 3 to 7 and designed to be fun and educational. The interactive weather projects are fun for the whole family to take part in. For only $10, the Day Weather Journal is a great gift idea for any occasion. Click on our Amazon link to order at dayweather.com.
Coming up on next week's edition of the Working Ranch Radio Show, you're not going to want to miss this one. Mr. Jess Peterson with U.S. Cattlemen's Association is back and joins us again. This time, we're going to be talking post-election news, and that is how the results of the election will affect some of the agriculture policy that they have been working on, and just some of the lowdown that we'd like to hear about what is all going on in Washington, D.C. Be sure to join us next week as Jess Peterson joins us here on our program. Well, the Working Ranch Radio Show is a production of Working Ranch Magazine, branded #1 by America's Ranchers. The next issue is in the works, going to be headed out the door pretty soon. If you do not have your subscription started, you can go to workingranchmag.com and start your subscription today. Well, if you'd like to get a hold of me about something you heard on the show, a question you might have, or a topic you'd like us to cover, shoot me an email at justin.workingranch@gmail.com. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be right here at the same time, same place, or on your favorite podcast provider. I'm your host, Justin Mills, and until next time, keep your chin down and your mind in the middle. So long.